I saw an old time King Kong movie the other day where he breaks his leg. I don't remember the exact name of the movie, but there was a huge cast. Hey kids, Adam here. Today we are going to go through a couple ways to mix distorted bass. Before we get started though, we need some bass. Let's go record some. All right, huge shout out to Don McSweeney from Facebook for providing the guitar tracks. Really came through for what I was looking for. We're working on this song. We've kind of titled it Upbeat Floaty Rock. I said, think of like cruising down a country road or Oceanside Drive or some kind of drone footage or something and having some more of a upbeat rock feel to that. For bass sounds, I was kind of going for the Billy Sheehan distorted P bass kind of sound. Had to use the new Lakland bass. Working on videos for all my basses. This one is going to be last in the series, but stay tuned within a couple weeks, months, years, centuries for me to do those. So for bass recording, I ran my bass directly into my Countryman 85 DI, and one channel of that went directly into my interface, so I have an unprocessed, clean bass DI. The other channel went into my pedal board. I have a cheating here, electro-harmonix bass soul food pedal, which is an awesome little pedal, and I have an exotic SP Compressor pedal, and I went into my Aguilar tone hammer DI. I have the TH500 bass amp. This is the exact same DI that the preamp that the bass amp has. Sounds amazing. I can actually play something off the bass amp and then direct and then put it in through this and punch in and stuff like that. Get the exact same sound. Love this thing. Would never record without it. But the problem with recording bass distortion is you wind up with all these frequencies that are really hard to control. If you want to compress it to make it that real pro sound, you can't really compress the lows too much because then it becomes too kind of muddy and farty sounding, and the highs kind of get out of the way. So a lot of times what studios will do is they'll take a DI and they'll process it after the fact. So let's take a look first at the regular track that's coming off my pedal board. And we'll mute the DI track here. And I'm going to turn this way down and we'll just kind of start. So if I was going to process this, first thing I do is I put a EQ on, and we can just use ReaEQ here. Put a high pass, maybe 30-ish, just to get out some of that really, really low rumble. I want to do a cut at 60 Hertz. I just typed that in here. We'll start at -3 dB. The reason is I have a boost on the kick drum there. I'm going to do a boost somewhere around 100 to 150, maybe 200-ish. And I'm going to do a cut at around 300. I'm going to do some more boosts in the like 1K to 4K range. I'll play along and just solo the bass out and kind of hear what it sounds like here. Take this section here and go. hear that sounds really like cheap and boxy? Yeah. Cut a bunch of that out. 3-4 dB, somewhere in there. I think that sounds pretty good. Let's play it along with the mix. All right, that sounds pretty good EQ-wise. For compression, I'm going to use the 1176 from Waves. I just like it for my bass. I'm going to do the bluey bass preset because I like it. And I'm going to adjust the input and output to get about 3 dB or so gain reduction. Keeping the ratio of 4:1 is fine here. Just play it along and see what it sounds like here. That sounds pretty good. I want to gain level the output so that I'm not adding any volume or taking any volume away from this. And then what I like to do is I like to do a double stack on these bass compressors and just add another one in. And same exact settings. Want to make sure I get the same like 3 to 5 or so dB gain reduction. We'll look at that. All right, and then the last thing I'm going to add here is tape saturation in the form of Kramer tape, because what else would I use? And from here, I just want to do the preset of bass clean DI. I found that if you have a clean sounding bass, you want to make it a little bit dirty, use that dirty bass DI. If you have a distorted sound, the clean bass DI preset seems to work really well. And I mean, you could really use just the default settings here. I'm just going to raise the input level to hit about 0 on the VU meter, and then output level to match. I keep this little link button here clicked, and it should do well. We'll see. That sounds pretty good. I'm kind of really happy with this tone. But let's say I either don't have a distorted bass or I can't get a tone that sounds this good. There's a lot of distortion pedals out there that are not made for bass. They really kind of kill your low end. There's a trick I first learned from watching Warren Hewart over at Produce Like a Pro, where you take your clean bass DI signal and you can make distortion from that. Here's just the clean DI. It sounds pretty good. What I want to do is I want to process this in where I split the lows and the highs out. So I'm going to take a copy of this track and paste it. I'm going to call this the low. We'll call this the high just for reference. First thing we need to do is we need to split frequencies out. So on the low side, I will add an EQ. We'll just use ReaEQ here. I want to create a low pass filter for all the lows. And here I'm going to do 300 hertz. The reason I do 300 is because there are some really kind of nasty boxy bass frequencies at 300. I want to take them probably out of both the high and the low. So what I'll do here is I will process this on the bass folder itself to do those cuts. For now, all we have is an unprocessed everything below 300 hertz, which is like all the bassy bassness of the bass. And then for compression, I'm going to use the same thing I did before. I'm going to use the same trick of double stacking compressors, but I'm going to go kind of crazy out on this. I'll use the same bluey, but I want to use a 12:1 ratio as opposed to a 4:1 because I really want a lot of compression on that low end. So I'm going for 5 or so on this meter, 5 to 7 dB of gain reduction. And then we can double stack these, but since I'm using a 12:1 ratio, probably don't need to. Let's hear what it sounds like. It sounds pretty good. So on the high side, I want to take the same EQ, copy it over, but instead of using a low pass, we're going to change this to a high pass. And now we have everything above 300 hertz, which sounds kind of really nasty and not bassy. What we can do is we can distort this and add our distortion sound and not affect the low end to this. So there's a number of different distortion plugins that we can use. I can use the JS distortion like I did in the vocal video, and I'll put a link to that up here. I'll try that. I don't know if it's going to work so well on bass. Let's just see what happens. I mean, that sounds okay, and I suppose you could work with that. What I found is actually kind of a really cheap way of doing this. Waves has these Gtr plugins. They're basically just replications of old Stomp boxes. And if I add this in the Gtr Stomp 2, because I only need 2 tracks here, there's an overdrive that works really well. Overdrive, and we'll hear what that sounds like. I mean, that actually sounds really good. It's just a cheap, knockoff of a, old like Boss or DoD overdrive pedal. Overdrive for me works better for bass than distortion in this kind of genre. Once you get into like more metal, I can see a straight out distortion, but anything rock, blues rock, this kind of floaty rock, I guess we're calling it. I like overdrive a lot better. Let's listen to both of those together now. You can mix and match your volumes then. And compare that to the other channel. It's more tight, it's more focused. You can really control the low end. And so the last things I want to do here is I want to do some EQ just to kind of get out some of those bad frequencies. I'll do the same thing here. I'll do a high pass down to like, I don't know, maybe 30 hertz. Take off my low pass filter. I'm going to do a cut at 60 again to get out of the way of the kick. And I want to do kind of a figure out where the bass frequency and the boxy frequency are. So I need to play this along with the mix to find out where this is. And we'll solo this out and kind of listen to it. And then I'll bring over the same Kramer tape. We'll just kind of make sure this level matches pretty good. It sounds pretty good. In order to compare the two, I need to drag this out of the folder so it's on its own level. So now we'll go, this is the original pedal board sound. And then the split off DI. You can hear there's much more definition. It's not as low muddy. It's not like it's brighter. In a way it is, but it's just everything's tighter and the distortion is not affecting the low end at all. So that can give much more definition. Let's compare them into the mix. First, the pedal board version. And now the duplicated DI. All right, so definitely the DI sounds better to my ears. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like the original or do you like the DI processed? The reason I like the DI process more is because you can split things. You can change the frequency. I chose 300 here just kind of on a whim. I've seen people do all the way up to 600. I've seen people do all the way down to, say, 200-ish. For me, for my basses, 300 kind of sounds good to me. So that's what I went with. But for me, I like the flexibility of being able to do more tones and move things around and tweak things. There are a number of built-in Reaper plugins you could do. I went through a lot of them in the vocal distortion video that I'll put a link to up there. But for me, this Gtr Stomp for some reason just works. It just sounds really good. The OverDrive pedal, I'm not a guitarist, so I have no idea what guitar pedal that even is, and I probably should, but I don't, so I don't know, ask a guitar. Ask your favorite guitarist what the green OverDrive pedal is. I don't think it's a tube screamer, because I thought that was more distortion, but again, I'm a bass player, what do I know? So that's it for this video. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe, click the little like button, hit the little bell thingamajigger, and if you want to support me financially, there's a link down below to buy me a Coke. Don't forget about the unofficial Reaper users group Discord server. There's a link to that in the description. And until next time, have yourselves an amazing week. Tome hammer, and I don't know what the hell I'm even talking about anymore. Don't forget about the Discord unofficial use Reaper